Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Podcasts and Players. And today, I have someone who I'm extremely excited to have on the show. This person, another content creator, YouTuber who makes, I would like to call them optimized guides. In fact, I think the series called D&D Optimized is the big series. There's also a talk show sort of podcast called Slide Into My DMs. If you've heard him, you'll recognize his voice anywhere. It is none other than, should I use your name or should I just talk about your channel?
Absolutely. You can use my full name. Which you might not know.
I think I do from the email, but I won't. I'll just say it is Colby from D4, D&D Deep Dives. Thank you for joining me, Colby.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me, Shane. I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I originally started the channel and called it D&D Optimized. And then about, it was like 9 months in or so, I think I kind of went, a lot of people, like that's a trigger word for a lot of people, right? Optimized, optimization. Mm-hmm. Some people are just like, I'm not an optimizer, min-max. You guys ruined the game. So I'm like, maybe I should change the name to something else just so that people don't get scared away at first glance. They might get scared away after realizing that my videos are like an hour long and I just drone on and on and on. But at least, the title won't scare them off.
That's fair. You get them in, but they stay for that ASMR voice. I gotta say, it is so soothing to listen to.
I made a short about this, actually. I don't know if you've seen it, but a while back, I made a little short that went something like, I get two of all the comments on my videos that I get two more than anything. One is, this guy looks like Homelander from The Boys. Holy cow, Homelander plays D&D, etc.
Oh, God.
And two, have you ever thought about doing ASMR? Mm-hmm. I suppose that's probably now I would add a third, which is either you're the Bob Ross of D&D or you're the Mr. Rogers of D&D. I get that.
That's actually really sweet.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, that's like the best compliment I could ever get. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to say what I admire about your channel over some others is probably the way you go about it. Because for those who don't know, optimize just means making a character, perform the best that it can. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you are trying to break the game and make everyone else have a bad time. And so there are other people who make or dedicate their channels to doing like optimized builds. And I haven't really asked any of them yet because a lot of them, and no shade on anyone we may know who does this, but it always comes off for me like there's a right way to play and a wrong way to play. And I think that's what scares people off. For you are always very upfront with every episode about we're not telling you what's the right way to play. We just have a fun idea. We want to make it work. Like, take this spell. It's not very good, but what if we made it good? Let's make a character that's all about making this spell good. And I love that sort of attitude.
Yeah, I mean, and like when I first started the channel, it was a little bit more like, okay, let's see. Everybody knows that like if you play a Hexblade Warlock and you get the Polearm Master Feat and the Great Weapon Master Feat and you cast Darkness on yourself and you have advantage on all of your attacks, then you're going to do more damage than like any other character. Or if you go Battlemaster Fighter and you take the Sharpshooter Feat and you take the Crossbow Expert Feat and you use a one-handed crossbow, then you're going to do more damage than that. And so like my first few builds were a little bit like, okay, let's actually figure out the most efficient or effective way to build that like sort of known archetype, right? And then also B, like, is it really like, does it really do more damage than any? Like let's take into account enemy armor class, and what our plus to hit is, and at what level are we talking about? Are we just talking about level 20? Because nobody plays the game at level 20. So what does it look like at level 6 or level 9 or whatever?
The fact that you cut it off at 17 is smart. I like that.
Well, yeah. And even then, I think if you look at the demographics of and like the view time of my videos, right? I mean, I'm sure every YouTuber sees this, but it starts it starts here at the top and, 80% of the people. And then as time goes on, viewership drops off. And yeah, usually by the time you get to level 17 on the video, I'm at like a 30% retention rate or whatever.
That's people still are just pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not going to be playing the game at level 17. Yeah. So who cares?
That's fair.
But yeah. So that's kind of, where it started at first, but then it wasn't very long. I was only a few episodes in that I was like, okay, if I'm actually going to try and come out with a character build every single week, obviously we have to do more than just like the known quote, and I'm doing air quotes here, the known, best, highest damage builds or whatever. And so I started to very quickly kind of branch off into sort of like you talked about, right? Where it's like, okay, I think the first one like this that I ever did was I've always had this fun concept of a character who can only do damage with spells and they have to touch the enemy, right? Like they can't be shooting lightning bolts from across the battlefield, but they actually have to like touch them. So because there's something about like my actual like corporeal, I should say, form, like something inherent, innate, or whatever about my magic that like requires the sense of touch, like Rogue in X-Men, right? Something like that, where it's like it only works if like skin on skin contact. I don't know. Okay, like how would I build that character, and could I build a character like that was like at least competitive, like damage wise, or they like make them kind of viable and somewhat potent, right? All right, let's now. So we've got our parameters, and we got to work within those parameters. Or like, people would, excuse me, people would start asking like, make the best like dart build that you can. Can the dart be a good weapon? Like, could you build around this? And it'd be like,
yeah, I saw that video.
Yeah, that's a fun challenge. Like, let me think about that. And actually, yeah, I think if we did this and this and this and this and this, like they could be really potent. In fact, like stronger than most of the other characters I've built to date. And that's always fun, right? To sort of discover like, oh, wow, like we could take this thing that was maybe commonly thought of as weak or less optimal, and make it like super potent. Now, admittedly, not all of my character builds do that. A lot of the times it's just like, let's make the best shadow monk that we can, or, let's do a tank build that's also a wizard, or whatever.
Wizard tanks are so fun.
And way more potent than people might give them credit for.
I confess something?
Yeah.
You are maybe notorious for your love of the bladesinger.
Yes.
And I am a kindred spirit. I fucking love the bladesinger. It's my favorite. Life. Yes. I recently just ended a campaign that I was in, where I played a genasi, like a fire genasi. And I decided I tried doing something like this. I was like, I could be like bladesinging and raging at the same time. There's no rule that you can't do that. I'm like, could I do that?
Right.
And I realized that with the way that my DM was running this, it would have been too mad. I'm like, I can't make this work.
Yeah.
But what if I kept the high con? I just made a con my highest stat and just, I had enough intelligence to work, but like, just, I never lost concentration on anything ever.
Yeah.
With Fire Genasi before the Mom came out, right? Mordenkainen's Multiverse of Monsters. Or
Multiverse, Monsters of the Multiverse.
I was able to, using that sort of build, create this really interesting sort of bladesinger. Started off kind of weak. Then I found your videos. And I was like, oh, this is how you're supposed to do it. And eventually became a very powerful character in her own right. It was a lot of fun to play and cemented itself as one of my favorite subclasses.
One of the hardest things for me to do, well, anytime we start a new campaign, like, it's always my favorite thing to be like, okay, like I have so many options. And at this point I have I think I just recorded my 120th episode, right? So it's like, and I've only played 5 or 6 of them, And it's like, okay, which one am I going to do? There's so many, I want to do all of them. And so it always takes me hours, literally hours and hours to just like figure out what I want to do. And if I want to tweak it at all for the campaign we're doing, for, what my other, companions, what my friends are playing. But then the other really hard part is, how do I not just play a bladesinger? Because I love them so much and they're so strong. Although actually I take that back. It's how do I not just play another bladesinger or a monk? Because that's my favorite. Like conceptually, those are my favorites.
Yeah.
And so it's always really hard to be like, okay, no. Like, we don't have any support characters. I've got this stars druid / light cleric that I've been, wanting to play, and they actually do tons of damage. But they're also a cleric and a druid, so they're just innately really good support. This is the one I should do, and I need to like expand my horizons. But really, deep down inside, I just want to play bladesingers and monks.
Mobility fighters with magic or key or some special thing they can do is so. It's the funnest thing to me. Like I think the fact that the bladesinger's just a wizard, a full caster, gets everything a wizard gets, and wizards get a lot. So it's like, not only do you get all this crazy stuff. I mean, I think Treantmonk said on one of his videos that like, just be a bladesinger, but then don't be a marshal, just be another wizard. And I'm like, that ruins the. I mean, what's the point? You know,
exactly. I love Chris Treantmonk. He and I have become pretty good friends over the year and a half or whatever. And people who watch my channel will know that we've done some collaboration things and we have fun. In fact, we've been chatting on Discord earlier today. But we definitely we approach character optimization from pretty different viewpoints a lot of the times, I think, which is a good thing. And I don't think that one is right and one is wrong. I tend to go like full in on like one thing. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I want to make this character like as best as I can, like for burst damage or for nova damage, or maybe sustain damage, or to be a tank so they're super survivable or whatever. And like I'm gonna put my blinders on and just ignore like everything else. And if that means I'm a glass cannon, like awesome. I love playing glass cannons. Like high risk, high reward. I blow stuff up and I die easily. Like that's great. Like it makes it more fun, And he tends to be a lot more like I don't know, like meta, you know what I mean? Like, no, the character needs to be like well-rounded, be like hard to kill, have like make their saving throws. He's famous for loving to, have his characters make their saving throws. And and of course, when you look at a wizard, you go, well, I mean, they're arguably the most powerful class in the game. Spellcasters in 5e, I think especially, have, a pretty big leg up on martial characters, generally speaking. So many things you can do, all the control, wall of force, all the fear and hypnotic pattern. Like this is what you should be using your spells for, and especially your concentration spells for, right? Is to like control the battlefield, shut the enemies down. It's way more powerful than like doing a little bit more damage. And that is like objectively hard to argue against, right? But my approach tends to be, and especially like bladesingers are a perfect example. And I think I actually even I made a comment on that video that you're talking about on his bladesinger video.
You did.
And because he was like, the best bladesingers are just wizards who, and bladesinger's nice because like, you can go into your blade song and it increases your armor class and it increases your ability to make your concentration saves. And then you're just a wizard and you're being a wizard. But you're like a harder to kill wizard with some good like defensive capabilities and things. And I'm like, but what if our approach instead was, look, I love playing martial characters. I like weapon users, and I like a dexterous, lithe, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, but like hard hitting martial character. So, I could play a fighter, right? Or I could be a barbarian or a rogue, and those characters can be effective. But what if I played a wizard? and like, could they be a better martial character than a fighter? Well, maybe. Like, if you built them in a certain way, if you used Shadow Blade instead of a two-handed, a greatsword or whatever.
Right.
Man, that thing upscales like crazy. As a third level spell, you're doing 3d8 every single swing. Once you hit bladesinger 6, you get to cast a cantrip as part of your extra attack. Once you get to whatever it is, level 10, level 14, I don't even remember now, you get to add your intelligence modifier to the damage that you do on every single attack. Like, and then you go, yeah, like, if our focus is on being the best martial character that we can possibly be, and bonus points, you're a freaking wizard, and so if you need to throw out a fireball, you can. If you want to, if you want to put up a wall of force, or use Misty Step a million times a day, have the spell shield, absorb elements, like all of these things, suddenly it's like, yeah, like, they can be the best martial character in the game. And so maybe, like, objectively, they would be more powerful. I'm doing air quotes again here. If you just kind of focused on being a wizard's wizard, that just had better defensive abilities. But man, if you love martial characters, like, they might be the best martial character in the game and have all of the cool benefits of being a wizard too,
Yeah.
So sorry, that was my bladesinger soapbox.
No worries. I feel very similarly. And I think you're right. Like, Treantmonk takes a different approach, but it's not wrong. My first wizard character that I made for 5e was for when I played Curse of Strahd, and I needed help because I was like, well, because of reasons, I was playing a necromancer and I couldn't really use the 6th level like feature of Animate Dead. Yeah. In the world, according to my DM, he's like, oh, well, Strahd the vampire will just take control of any undead you make, so it won't work. And so basically,
because I hate necromancers.
Oh no! Well, I'm like, well, what do
That's a different argument. I don't hate necromancers. I'll tell you why I said that later.
Yeah, but I think I understand where you're coming from, because they can make it a bit of a nightmare when you're managing all these different things and they run around, and they can be very swing or miss. Like, they could decimate an encounter, or they could all just be obliterated in one go. In fact, I should mention, I literally watched a video that Treantmonk released today about the Dread Necromancer, and he said all of that stuff.
Yeah, totally.
But I was like, well, eventually I was given a different, like, an alternative thing to do for level 6. So that was fine. But at the time I was like, how am I going to make my character good? And so I found, and this was back in 2017. So I think Treantmonk wasn't on really YouTube at this point, but he was making guides on like Reddit and stuff.
Reddit.
So people,
or Giants in the Playground. Is that what?
Giants Playground. It's called. Yes. Yeah. And his guide, Treantmonk's guide to the God Wizard, was very him, just very like.
Yeah, he got famous on that one, I think.
Yeah, and that helped me. So like, tons of respect to him. But I think if I'm looking for survivability, I would go look at it from like his angle of like, how do I make something well-rounded, make their saves and all that stuff. If I'm looking for like gimmicky and fun, you're my guy. I go to your videos. I'm like, I want to do something silly. I got
gimmicky and fun in spades.
Yeah,
that's for sure. And I'll often find myself saying, during the course of the video, like, look, I'm not necessarily recommending that you do this. You might want to take the smart route and take resilient wisdom as your feat here so that you can actually make your saving throws, or, whatever. But I always like to say, in the interest of exploring what's possible, like, let's just stretch this thing to the 9s, right? Just to see how much damage could we actually get out of this. It might not be the smartest way to build or play this character, but it's fun to explore what's possible. Yeah. And then you can decide, when and how to scale it back in the name of, being more well-rounded or being able to hold on to your concentration or whatever.
Yeah. I been playing since 5e came out, and I'm at a point where a normal character isn't interesting enough anymore. I need the gimmicks. I need the fun.
Now you want to be a loaf of bread that's carried by a perpetual mage hand spell. That's my character.
Yeah, or something.
None of this elf ranger that's a beastmaster that has a wolf pet and shoots stuff with a bow.
I would say a lot of your builds work very well for one shots because you just start at a level, and because you only have a small window to make an impression, you might as well make it a fun one.
Exactly. And go out in a blaze of glory, because if you have a glass cannon and he dies, it's a one shot.
It's a one shot. Exactly.
And it also, I think there's plenty of ones in there that are so gimmicky that they could be a lot of fun in a one shot, but they both might get a little boring after a few rounds or a few sessions, or like the DM would just be like, okay, I have to shut this down because it's too strong and it's weird. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I did one of my favorites that I've done still to date. It was called the Thornlock. I don't know if you ever saw that, but the concept was, I want to pile on everything that I can that returns damage when I get hit.
Oh yeah.
So I was taking Fire Shield, Armor of Agathis, I don't even remember, just everything that I could find, right? That was just right. And what I do, I never make attacks. I just run up to you and grapple you and try to make you hit me. And when you do, you take damage from 15 different sources. And so it's it's funny and fun and actually works really, really well if you can get buy-in from your DM, right? And be like, look, DM, this is my character concept. I'm not going to make attacks. So if enemies don't hit me, my character is worthless. So are you willing to work with me on this, right? Yeah. And let me play this way where I run up and grapple somebody and then they try to hit me, right? And again, funny and actually powerful. They did they were among the higher damage dealing characters that I've ever built.
Right.
But I can see after a couple of episodes or a couple of combat encounters, you know what I mean? The DM being okay, no, this monster's too smart. They're not going to hit you anymore. And now your character's worthless.
Yeah.
Or I had one that was, the grapple fly drop. So many people are like, what if you built a character that would grapple, fly somebody up into the air and drop them for, massive damage? And it's yeah, you could, if you build it right and you get a lot of move speed on them and they can fly and they've got good grapple checks and all those kinds of things, it actually could work really well and you could do quite a bit of damage to them. But how effective is it really going to be? Right? Are you always going to be outside when you're having combat?
Right.
What if you're doing a dungeon crawl? What if you're in a tavern? This really only works in very specific situations. So great for a one shot, lots of fun. But if you tried to do that for an entire campaign outside of maybe, I don't know, Storm King's Thunder or something like that, right? That was primarily outdoors. It's this really just kind of stops working very well.
Honestly, it feels...
So anyway.
It feels like that you're... Kind of what you do is you stress test the system. You are going for one specific thing just to see how far you can take it. And I think what a average player that isn't trying to be crazy with it can take away are unique ways to think about strategies in combat, because that's actually a really good tactic to fly, grapple, drop from a high height. But you're not going to do that more than once, maybe twice, a whole campaign probably, because a lot of the combats are going to be in dungeons and stuff, so it's not going to work. I actually built a character in I don't know if you've heard of Star Wars 5e. It's a fan-made twist on 5e that's got Star Wars stuff in it. And
sure. I have not, though I have played What's the Star Wars TTRPG? Edge of the Empire?
Edge of the Empire, and then they had like 2 more that have different names, but it's all the same system.
Okay. Yeah, I've played that. We did that for a few months. It was pretty fun. I mean, who doesn't want to be a Jedi, right?
Right. Well, I don't really. Usually,
I do.
It's too many Jedis. So I'm sick of all the Force users running around. I'm like, I thought we were rare.
I'm a walking cliche. Like my favorite race is elf. My favorite monster is dragon. If I'm playing Star Wars, I'm gonna freaking be a Jedi. Get out of here with your smuggler garbage.
Oh, well, I played Star Wars 5e with some friends, and it's fan made, so like whoever made this has a ton of options, like all the races, and one of them was the only tiny race that you're allowed to play, which is I don't know if you've seen episode 9 of the sequel trilogy with that little guy Babu Frick who goes, hey, hey.
Yeah, that guy's awesome.
They're called Anzelins, and it was a playable race, and I'm like,
nice,
I'm being that. And by sheer coincidence,
he was the best part of episode 9.
He really was. And by sheer coincidence, everybody else was a small character. So immediately we had this whole idea of like, we are going to never trust anyone taller than 4 feet and only fight for those who are small. And so what I ended up doing was I played a Force user. I wanted to be like Yoda, but like evil and on steroids. So there was a class kind of like the wizard. They use spell points in this, or force points, instead of slots. And it's called the Consular, and I took the Sith way, so you use your charisma instead of your wisdom. Jedis use wisdom, so it's very cool how they did that. But I chose a subclass that's focused purely on like telekinesis type stuff, lifting big objects, having empowered versions of telekinesis. Like they have that spell as like a force power, but it's way better. And then with my subclass, it's even better than better. Nice. I had a thing I was going to do, and I was just waiting. I knew it was very situational, and I knew I couldn't do it every combat. But when that combat happened, I was going to blow my DM's mind with a combination of actions and bonus actions and, all these weird powers. I could take something huge or smaller, fling it up in the air 90 feet. Then as a bonus action, do it another 30 feet. And extend that by 30 feet because of my subclass. What is that, 150 feet in the air? Yeah. And just let go.
Nice.
And just let it drop. So as long as it doesn't fly, it takes all that fall damage. And I'm just the little Babu Frick that goes, farewell!
Exactly. Yeah. And you get to say something like, I don't know, look at me, judge me by my size, do you?
I had a voice changer because we did it online, and so I was a Sith guy, so I had like a helmet and a cape, and I was like very dramatic but very tiny, and I called myself Obliax, the World Render, and then I pitched that to be this little guy saying, I will rule the galaxy. It was so good.
That's awesome. You're like Brain from Pinky and the Brain.
Kind of, yeah. He was, he was evil but with purpose. In that he didn't trust tall folks, and in fact, the small should have dominion over the tall, was like a phrase of his. But also, everyone on the team, even though he was like evil, like these were his minions, so he cared about them. So like, he was a good boss. Was his whole deal. Like, if anyone at one point, one of the other characters got like misgendered, and he like force choked him. He's like, use the right gender pronouns or whatever. And very, very interesting sort of twist on the sort of I want to rule the universe character. But
so that there will be order and peace. Just like
exactly. Anakin. Yeah. See, in his mind, I mean, he was dark side, but not Sith. He was like, the Sith fucked it up. They're all too selfish. I care about everyone as long as they follow me.
said every dictator ever.
Yes. Very, very tongue in cheek, kind of knowing wink to the other players, and they were cool with it. So I want to ask, what if you could say would be one of your favorite non-bladesinger, and I'll even go a step further, non-monk builds?
tank because I was like, oh.
Okay, give me a monk build, and then give me a non-monk, non-bladesinger.
No, I'm no bladesinger, no monk. Gosh, it's tough because I find what's funny is that, when I first started the channel 2.5 years ago, almost now, for a long time, like every single build that I did, I almost like was very fresh in my mind, and I could sort of like recall it and recall like everything that I did to create it and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And after a while, it's like my brain got full or something. And now like I'm recording 2 weeks before I release a video, right? So I'll be recording a video, but I'm editing it and it's 2 weeks out. And then there's another one that's coming out in a few days, but I did that one 2 weeks ago. And in the meantime, there's one in the middle. Yeah, exactly. And like, I can't even remember, like, I have a video coming out on Tuesday. Like, couldn't even tell you what it is. It's like, was it a bard? Is it a barbarian? I have no idea. So now kind of looking back on the 120, I think, okay, I'll give two, one that's pretty typical and one that's weird. The fairly typical one that I'm really itching to play, and probably would have played for an upcoming campaign that I'm going to be starting with my friends this Tuesday that I'm really excited about. But one of my friends decided they wanted to play a paladin, so I didn't want to have paladin too many paladins. It was called the Holy Warrior, and that's what I called it anyway. And it was mostly a devotion paladin with a zealot barbarian. And it was kind of just a straightforward, I hit stuff kind of character, but they hit stuff so hard. Yeah. At least in the lab, right? And like the goal, because every time I build a paladin on my channel, almost every time, it's always for burst damage or nova damage. And for anyone who might not be familiar with those terms, it's basically just a way of saying, okay, we're going to create a character who, at the expense of lots and lots of resources that are limited in use, right? We're going to see how much damage we can do in one single round of combat. Go Nova, right? A big burst of damage, with the intent to like totally take out one or maybe even multiple enemies, to like swing the tides of the battle in your favor, in your team's favor right at the beginning. And even if you're maybe not doing as much damage on rounds 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, it doesn't matter, because you just took the odds from, a 50-50 chance of winning this fight to a 70-30 in round 1. And now you can just kind of sit back and, poke stuff with your longsword and you're fine. So anyway, I always do burst damage builds with paladins because Divine Smite is really, really strong, and you can do lots of damage if you can hit lots of times in a combat and apply a Divine Smite on every single one. And that kind of always is my tendency. But I was like, you know what? For once, I just want to make a paladin that's focused on sustained damage, that they just do like good, consistent, high damage round after round without having to expend a lot of resources. And so that's what I had came up with for that. And I mean, paladins, as a lot of veterans of D&D, I suppose 5e anyway, would know, is they're really powerful. Like they kind of can do it all and do it all well, right? Heavy armor,
especially once they get level 6 and they get the aura of protection, boost everybody saves.
Like, exactly. Like great defense, great support. Even if all you have is lay on hands, that's pretty potent, like support feature. They've got great concentration spells, can do big burst damage. They can be pretty hard to kill. I mean, they have a lot going for them. And I kind of thought, if I could build a really good sustained damage dealing paladin, then they would be like amazing at everything, right? And so, yeah, that one I'd really like to play, because I love paladins. My two favorite archetypes would be like I've said, sort of dexterous, high damage dealing, nimble strikers. And then 2 would be kind of the Holy Warrior, I guess, like a tank, you know what I mean? That's like hard to kill, protects their allies. It's the dad in me, it's like channeling all that dad energy. Right. Just like, I'm going to defend my my family and nobody's going to get past me and I'm going to heal them and I'm going to, take the beating for you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that character I think would be just a juggernaut of a character, and I really want to try him out. But as far as like maybe for the next one shot that's kind of weird and fun and quirky, I did one called the Ashardalon's Strider, or Greased Lightning, I think I called him.
Yeah.
Because one of the most asked questions I was getting from people was like, how fast could a character run if you built them like just with all the move speed buffs you could possibly get or whatever? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I mean, I guess we could figure that out, but why? Like, there needs to be some sort of practical application. Oh, you can move 3,000 feet on a turn. Okay. Like, but then Fizban's Treasury of Dragons came out, and this spell, Ashardalon's Stride, which told you that, basically you just have to run past somebody and you can do damage to them. And I was like, okay, like that would be fun to build around. And now like having lots of move speed is suddenly valuable, because if you can run past every single enemy on the battlefield and do damage to all of them, and maybe a little extra damage by, making a couple of attacks against one of those bad guys, well, then that could actually be potent. And so I did that, and it ended up just being so fun. And especially by the late game of that character, it would be especially good in like a one shot that was like a high level one shot. So like, I don't remember the level exactly, 12, 13, 14, something like that, because you end up getting Tempest Cleric levels, and you are a Scribe's Wizard. So you're transmuting the damage from fire to lightning. And then with Tempest Cleric, once you get Tempest Cleric 6, when they take lightning damage, you can push them. And so so instead of a trail of fire behind you as you're running with your Ashardalon's Stride, it's lightning now. And every single person that you run past, not only are you doing damage to them, but you can move them. And so you're basically like rounding up. You're like a wrangler or a sheepdog. Yeah. But you're running around the battlefield in a circle and like pushing people in or moving them wherever you want to move them. You know what I mean? Get them all rounded up nice and tight for like your friend's fireball spell or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was just a fun image of like you running like Quicksilver in the X-Men movies, and like you're just going so fast that people are like flying in slow motion behind you as you run past them and stuff. That's another one that would be really, really fun and might get old after a while. You know what I mean? Of just like, okay, I've run really fast.
I've done the how fast can I run build before with my friend Denaro. And we made two versions. We made the marathon runner and the sprinter. So like I have it pulled up here because I was like, this sounds so familiar. Marathon runner, we made, it was a centaur with 40 feet of movement. Get the mobile feat for an extra 10. Get meta magic add up for extended spell. Then you do 15 levels of monk, 5 levels of bladesinger wizard. The monk gives you plus 25 feet and step of the wind. And then bladesinger's that 10 feet from the blade song. Long strider gives you another 10. Haste will double your speed, and when you run out of haste, you can expeditious retreat.
There you go.
And the calculations we ended up doing was base speed was 95 feet. So with haste on, doubling that is 190 feet. Nice. And then in a single turn, you could go 570 feet.
Using dash, using your step of the wind, and
using every resource available.
Et cetera.
Yeah. And there was the question of like, why would we need to do this? I'm like, well, what if we wanted to do a race? Who would win between these two? The other one was the Tabaxi because of its natural ability. Mm-hmm. Everyone gets mobile. And then we did 10 levels of monk with that. Then we did 2 levels of fighter for action surge.
Action surge. I was going to say, don't forget action surge. 3
levels of sorcerer to grab extended spell. Though honestly, we probably could have gotten away with more levels of monk or something grabbed.
Sure.
Friggin' meta magic adept.
Meta magic adept, yeah.
Yeah. And then with wizard, it was bladesinger again. And with that, you could run faster for a shorter time, but eventually that centaur would catch up to you because you'd be running out of steam. You have less resources. Right. A lot of fun. I also made one that was how high can I jump? Let's jump as high as we possibly can with some really stupid multi-class. And I did a one shot that was funny enough about the Easter Bunny. So I was like,
There
my
you go.
guy.
Was the Heron gone?
Yeah, well, no, it's before that even came out. So he was a satyr, because satyr can add to theirs.
Yeah.
But it was like he idolizes the Easter Bunny. He's like, no one jumps better than the Easter Bunny. I want to be just like him. And then the big twist was he was the bad guy. So he did his thing to jump like 85 feet in the air, then just maneuvered his horns down and did a pile driving horn attack on it. I'm like, I'll take the damage. I don't care.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, there's lots of fun that you can have with all sorts of like gimmicks and rules, and yeah, it can make for fun characters. The question, sort of becomes how sustainably fun are they?
Yeah, I think getting away from all the gimmicky stuff, I prefer to play characters that have a lot of different things they can do personally, because I think if I'm too focused on one thing with a character, I get bored with the character. Unless there's some compelling story element that allows me to role play a lot. Yeah. Like my first long-term character was a fighter. It was cool. It was samurai before that had come out. He was a battle master, but like his whole vibe was he was a samurai. But I didn't put enough personality into the guy, and he was just a fighter. So there was a lot of moments where I'm like, I can't do anything in this moment. I can't really even role play well. Yeah. I feel like that's on me. I should have built this character better.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for like having versatility in what you can do in combat. I tend to have the most fun I've found in D&D when I'm like doing lots of damage. I guess I'm just kind of lame that way. But I really have fun when I'm just like killing all of the bad guys. But that said,
it feels good.
A lot of the characters that I build, especially lately, I feel like I get people requesting like support builds, and that's great. But D&D, thankfully, and this is something that I feel like I've talked about a lot on my channel, is not like, World of Warcraft, right? It's not an online RPG where, you've got a tank, you've got a healer, and you've got damage, and you have to be one of those three things, and you need all three of those things in order for, your team to actually be able to do the content in the game, where the healer basically just stands at the back and just casts heal spells over and over again, primarily on the tank, every once in a while to, some other characters. And some people really like that playstyle, but I think more people don't than do. And so it's like, if I'm going to build a support character in D&D, especially, like, I don't want to just build a character that kind of sits back and heals, because D&D 5e doesn't really work that way mechanically. You run out of spells. It's just not very efficient, right?
Yeah.
But B, like, even if you could, and I did once, I built a Twilight Cleric, which is arguably overpowered. And, just to say, okay, like, what if you just wanted to be that character where you just sit back and just heal, just keep all of your allies topped off to the best of your ability? Well, you know what? If you play a Twilight Cleric, maybe throw in some Stars Druid there, you could probably pull it off, like, because those temporary hit points that you just get to give out every single turn are a little OP, and, your heal spells can be super efficient when you pick up some Stars Druid abilities, et cetera, et cetera. And so that, that was a fun experiment. But generally the support characters that I play are like, okay, I want to be able to support effectively in game. I can throw out some heals if I need to. I can protect my allies. I can buff them, but like, I want to do something else too, like maybe a big round of burst damage, or maybe a lot of control on the battlefield, or, something. So yeah, like so many characters that I do. The one that I just finished editing the video on today, actually, that won't come out for a couple of weeks. So here's an exclusive preview. It was an open hand monk crossed with a spores druid. And, they were built for high sustained damage, but the reality is you end up by level 17, you're like 12 levels of druid. So innately you're a great support character. You know what I mean? You've got greater restoration. You've got Goodberry. You've got all of, the heal spells that they can get access to. You've got Revivify. You have some good buff and a lot of good utility too. And so it's like, look, you might run out of key points because you only have 5 levels of monk, but that's almost a good thing because it's like, hey, I got this thing that I can do and I'm hitting people and I'm knocking them into spike growth and I'm doing all this damage and then I run out of key points. And so on the next combat, you know what? I'm going to sit back and I'm going to cast Entangle to control those enemies over there. And I'm going to, heal my allies and I'm going to, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, just being able to kind of mix it up from combat to combat with a single character, there's a lot of value there, I think, to keep the game and the character interesting and fun.
Yeah, I always go into like a new game with the assumption that there is no homebrew and everything has to be by the book. So having the videos that you make, along with other people who make the sort of optimized builds, is really helpful because it allows you to have, things that just rules as written generally work. Sometimes there's like things where you're like, ask your DM if you can do this because it's even better. But for the most part, it's like a realistic look. And then if you're fortunate enough to have a DM that has like homebrew, where I was talking to the last podcast guest, actually, he's all about homebrew. And he was like talking about how his videos are all about like homebrewing the classes that underperform to match the ones that are already good. So never nerfing, but always just lifting others up to be, And he was talking about how like fighters should start with the fighting initiate feat so that they always have 2 maneuvers and a superiority die. And then obviously battle masters get that extra, but they also get all of them. So that's why they're the battle master. But every fighter should have that. I'm like, yeah, you talking sense. They should. And I don't know, just if you're fortunate enough to have a home brewing type of person DMing you, it can make a character that would feel one note feel a lot more versatile because they can help you do more. But if not, people should check out your channel because it's really helpful.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. I think we're getting nearish the end of the show. So I like to close things out by asking if there is a particular story from one of your campaigns that you've been in that you remember fondly or well, something funny, cool, whatever you would feel would be fun to share.
Yeah, a favorite moment. Oh, there's so many, right? Let's see. I'll share 2 quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
One was just a mechanical thing that I think is a good example of how, well, just like you said, like a good DM, I think one of a good DM's jobs or goals maybe should be, in my opinion, to like help their characters feel cool and powerful. Like I get kind of annoyed. I have a little bit of a pet peeve of people that are like, oh, like, this may work rules as written, but it's totally gimmicky and I would never allow this at my table. It's like, why not? Like that, like it could be really fun and cool and interesting, So we were playing Curse of Strahd, and there was a moment in the game where I was playing a paladin. They were an Oath of the Crown paladin, and they were definitely like a tanky dad vibe paladin, right? Where I was trying to protect all my allies. And Oath of the Crown paladins have one of their channel divinities. I can't remember what it's called, but the flavor text of it makes it sound like it's a big, massive area of effect taunt. I'm doing taunts in air quotes here. Basically, that would encourage or force enemies that are affected by it to attack you and not anybody else.
An actual tanking ability.
Yes, but like when you actually read how the ability works, it doesn't work like that. The description's like, you let out a battle cry and all of your enemies like must, like have to, like in order to get the enemies to attack you. I don't remember what it says, but then the actual mechanics are, they can't move more than 30 feet away from you. Like that's all it does. And I'm like, that's so
yeah. Oh,
I'm gonna now that I'm saying it, I'm gonna look it up because
I've got it. I'm pulling it up now because I also want to read it. Let's see. It's
Oath of the Crown.
Champion Challenge. As a bonus action, you issue a challenge that compels other creatures to do battle with you. Each creature of your choice that you can see within 30 feet of you must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, a creature can't willingly move more than 30 feet away from you. And that's it.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
This effect ends if you're incapacitated or die.
I thought you said that compelled them to do battle with me. It's not compelling anybody to do anything.
Ooh.
Just not run away. So anyway, we're having this moment in Strahd and like the world is falling apart and my allies have all run and I was like, I will hold the line so that you can escape kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I did that and I issued this champion challenge and my DM, to his credit, was like, you know what? I'm going with it. Like I'm going with the flavor text. And he had all of like, there was like at this point, I don't even know, 15, 20 enemies, like all trying to attack me. And the vast majority of them were missing like every single time.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
It felt so cool as my friends were able to get to safety and I was like, rah, and like nobody could kill me. And I just had this really, really cool moment of 3 or 4 rounds of just kind of surviving this gauntlet. Eventually, of course, they did, manage to knock me unconscious, and then it led to some really cool story moments. But things like that can be so memorable in the game that I would love to see more DMs, and I would hope, I guess, that DMs would be willing to kind of let their players have a moment like that. Other than that, what was it was just a story thing. So we were playing this homebrew campaign, and to make a long story short, there were these 2 factions and they were kind of at war and they were trying to use us as tools against each other. And our party didn't really know who to trust. We kind of ended up siding with this one faction, but my character didn't feel good about it. And I was like, you were both bad. I don't like having to, I was the Witcher. I don't like having to choose between the lesser of 2 evils. Like they're both evil. No, like I don't want to help either of you, And so we got to this final showdown against like the boss of the other faction kind of thing. And as we were having this final battle, the faction that we were sided with showed up to like help us, and including the leader of that other faction, who I was like, I don't like that we're working with these people, but whatever. We took out the bad faction, and then the leader of the faction we were working with said or did something that just was like a jab to me in my conscience, that he was not going to make the world a better place, essentially, that now there was this power vacuum that they were going to fill and it was just going to make the world like a worse place kind of thing. And so I kind of like had this moment and I rolled a die to see, because I wasn't quite sure what would my character do here. I think I would attack this person, but like, I'm going to like make all of my companions mad at me because that's going to screw everything up. And we sort of agreed to work with this guy and all this stuff. And I rolled some sort of check on myself and failed the check. And I was like, I attack him. And everyone at the table was like, what? Like, no, like they're our ally. I'm like, I'm sorry, you guys, like this guy's a dirtbag and he's going to like destroy the world. And so my companions all joined in and we had this great moment. Well, what felt like a great moment to me, we defeated him, but then it kind of created this rift in our party. And to my friends, credit, I think they played it really well. Like one of my friends, his character and my character were really close, and he was like, hey man, I got your back. A couple of the others were like, dude, like not cool, and it kind of created this fun sort of dynamic and great story moment, that was sort of conflict for our characters, though not necessarily like for us in real life, right?
Yeah.
It didn't create IRL conflict, but it made for a really great story moment that was super memorable. And eventually our characters kind of worked it all out. But Yeah, I think sometimes it's fun to kind of go off the rails a little bit with your character, just to throw a wrench in the works and see what happens. I mean, as long as you're not being, as long as you're not, how can I say this? Like, actually, like triggering
Antagonistic.
people and being, do you know what I mean? Like, there's definitely a fine line and a time and a place. You want to be sensitive to people and avoid actually offending them in real life.
I would give the piece of advice to folks out there that, like, if you want to play a character that isn't afraid to go against sort of what the party's doing, make sure you know the players who are playing that party. Like, make sure you understand. Some people are prone to like bleed, where like the real life stuff kind of creeps into the character stuff, or vice versa. And so sometimes they're a little bit identifying too much with the character. They're like, I need to step away. If you have friends who kind of are prone to that, that might not be a good idea. So it's like, usually you got to kind of know your audience here. And if you're with people you don't know very well, better to play it safe. But if you do have folks that you trust, you got good chemistry with, and you try something like that, I think you're right. It could have a really big payoff as you're all like trying to like craft this communal collaboration together,
Story. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you, Colby, for so much for coming on the podcast. I was kind of worried you wouldn't respond to my email. I like sent it. I'm like, he's gonna be like, who's this guy? I'm not going on that thing. So I'm really glad that you proved me wrong.
No, it's been a lot of fun.
Could you? I can't believe I almost forgot. I wanted to ask, where can people find you?
Right. So on YouTube, the channel is called D4 D&D Deep Dive. I think the handle is just like DNDDD, if I'm not mistaken.
I looked it up today. It's D4 D &D Deep Dive.
Right. So yeah, just Google it and you'll see my ugly mug on the thumbnail of every single one of those videos. We also do have an actual play channel as well called Tales of an Area. If you don't have enough, like, watching other people play D&D in your YouTube feed currently and are looking for more, that's always fun. I do make my show available as a podcast as well, and it's available pretty much on every podcast platform. So same thing, D4 D&D Deep Dive. I don't even know, I probably get 1/10 of the listens as I do the views on YouTube, which is fine for me because I don't make any money on the podcast.
Yeah.
but YouTube actually, will pay you ad share, ad revenue share. Mm-hmm. So, I don't have a preference for how you watch or listen actually, but that's pretty much it.
Folks, go check out Colby on the Deep Dive for really cool, fun, and interesting builds to help inspire you and get your creative juices flowing. Thank you once again for being on the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.